So welcome. This is the second in a series of sessions on the Mystery Pathogen remote learning module, which is one of the resources that we've made available to people who are trying to navigate teaching living environment under the unique situation of remote learning that we're dealing with right now. So if you're still joining, if you're still coming into the session, you can just write your name and your school in the chat window, and that way we'll know who's here, and we'll be talking together as we go through this session. So I'm going to start with some introductions and an overview of the agenda for this session. So we're now on the second session of a 3-session webinar series that's all around this one particular module. And basically we're like looking at this module through a couple different lenses. The first one, which was last week, and there will be a recording of it online soon if you weren't able to join us, was focused on how to use the module in Google Classroom. So we set up a Google Classroom and we sort of talked about a few fairly basic best practices for Google Classroom. So nothing super advanced, but just like the basics for getting student work into Google Classroom so you have evidence of their participation in the class. The focus for this session today is going to be on peer-to-peer discussion. And we're going to look at why peer-to-peer discussion is important, maybe what's particularly important when we're doing remote learning, and some possible strategies that you can use for peer-to-peer discussion. Next Wednesday's session is going to be on formative assessment and feedback. Again, it's going to be around this same module, but the module is just sort of a tool for digging into these instructional practices. So the first thing I'd like to do before we actually launch into this is just see if anybody has any thoughts. Do these ideas or issues resonate with you? Google Classroom, peer-to-peer discussion, formative assessment, feedback. Are these things that sound like familiar and useful right now in your work? And is there anything you'd like to say about it before we move on? Feel free to put your notes in the chat. Let's see. Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to be facilitating this session. My name's Kieran. I work at New Visions for Public Schools, and I'm the facilitator for this session, and I'll be doing a lot of the talking, but not all of the talking. We're going to really ask you guys to chime in at different times and share some thoughts, so we hope you'll be willing to talk as well. The host of this session is Susan. Susan can wave to you. Her name in the chat window is NVPS, New Visions for Public Schools. So I just want to tell you that, because if you're having any trouble connecting, or you're having any trouble figuring out where things are, finding a resource, anything like that, you should feel free to chat her directly. Chat directly to NVPS and she'll help you. So if you, for instance, can't find a link, or you don't know what we're talking about, you missed the link to the agenda, I put something on the screen and you miss it, just let her know and we'll come back and help you out. Because sometimes I don't see all the stuff in the chat window because I've got all these other things open. But she's here to make sure that everybody gets what they need. Okay, so here's what's on the agenda. The first thing we're going to talk about is, why does peer-to-peer discussion matter? We know things are different in remote learning. There's some things we won't be able to do at all in this phase, but there's some things we really should prioritize. We're going to talk about why remote learning might be one of those things we need to prioritize, why peer-to-peer discussion might be one of those things to prioritize in remote learning. Then I'm going to provide a quick overview of the Mystery Pathogen Learning Plan. If you were with us last week, this is a little bit of a repeat, although there might be questions you have since last week that you want to ask, and so that'll be great. Then we're going to do 2 quick peer discussions. One is going to be using a routine called 3 Reads, which is a literacy routine, and one is going to be using an app, which you can access on your phone if you have your phone with you, or you can access it on whatever device you're doing this call on. Or if you don't want to do or can't do either of those things, you can also just play along with us and watch how the rest of the group does it. So we're going to experience those peer discussion activities from the Mystery Pathogen learning plan, and then we're going to have some time for debrief and discussion and feedback at the end. So it's a fast-paced hour here. So as we're getting into this, I want to say a little bit about goals. For this one, we're really going to look at a science remote learning instructional model through the lens of peer discussion. We're going to try and model and unpack together 3 practices, 3 reads, Flipgrid, and a micro routine called Refine Relate. And then we're going to try to become aware of, try to share with you additional ways that you can get support from New Visions. So you may know about the other webinars and the remote learning materials and other kinds of resources that we provide, but we just want to leave this session knowing that people know where to access materials going forward. So there's sort of 2 kinds of agreements here. First are kind of the technical agreements, which are probably things that we're all really used to at this point with being in the remote learning world so much right now. One is to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. So we have a lot of people here and probably some more will be joining us over time. And so it's a good idea to mute yourself so that you're not having all your background noise come into the session. I think Susan has already shared the participant agenda, and maybe she'll share that one more time. And so as you go through the session, keep that open next to or in the same screen as where you're in this Zoom call, so that if there's links in there that you need to refer to, you can go over to those links. Anything that we're using like Flipgrid or resources from the remote learning site, if you open them up in separate windows or tabs, that'll help you out. And then allow extra wait time. So we realize that people mute themselves and then can't figure out how to unmute quickly, and so we're going to provide a little extra wait time in case people need it. In addition, you know, there's the social emotional component of this work, and we know that people are going through a lot, and people are going through a lot of different things. So we always want to remember to recognize the complexity and the emotional difficulty of this time, and the fact that people might be bringing different stresses and different pressures into this work. And so we're all going to be patient, even more patient than we hopefully would already be working with one another. And also just that all these resources will be available afterwards. So if you miss something or you're confused about something, you can always get the slides and handouts later, but you can also always reach out to us and we'll try to help you figure it out. Okay, so we're going to start off with a question. And this question is, why does peer-to-peer discussion matter? Why are we spending this hour talking about it? Why are we thinking it's something that would be good to incorporate into your work? And in order to answer this question, we're going to use a micro routine called Relate. So here's how this micro routine goes. I'm going to put up the overall flow here, and then we're going to dig into the routine step by step. So first, we're going to spend 30 seconds looking at a graph and make a personal connection to the information that's in there. So you're just going to think for a minute. Then you're going to have about 45 seconds and think about how it connects to something we've learned or you've learned on your own as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, as somebody working in a school. And then we're going to have a minute to share. And since we're not in small groups for this share, we're going to talk about sharing in the chat so that everybody gets a chance to talk and relate together, but we'll be able to surface some important ideas. So this is, oops, I think I went too far. Okay, so I'm going to show this, this graph to start us off. I'm going to give everybody a chance to look at it, and then I'm going to put up the prompts. So this, just so you know, the source of this is from a recent survey that came out. That's the Emergency Remote Learning in Our Public Schools survey, and it was a survey of many, many teachers. I guess the respondents for this were 7,254 teachers. So they surveyed teachers, family members, and administrators at schools and asked them a whole bunch of questions about how they're doing with remote learning. And this was one of the answers to the question, how would you describe the adjustment of the majority of your students? So we're going to unpack this response data just a little bit. So the first thing is I'm going to give everybody 30 seconds of independent think time to look at that graph, which is a little smaller now so that you could be sure to see the prompt below it, and think, how would you describe the adjustment of the majority of your students? You're just going to think about that graph and think, what does it remind you of? What does this graph make you think of? So just think to yourself for about 30 seconds. Okay. There we go. All right. We're going to go to the next one. Next. So think about this graph again and how it might connect to something you know about teaching high school science. Again, just think on your own, and we're going to share answers in a moment. Okay, and now we're going to go to the next one, and this is the last minute. So we're going to go into the chat and share your connection, not with a partner, but with the whole group. And you can use this sentence frame, something that came up for you. So something you're relating to is similar to your own experience because. So think about something you can share, and we'll take about a minute and give everybody a chance to share again in the chat window. I just saw all the comments about making the graph bigger, so I went a little bit, I just went back to make it the bigger version, and we will share the slides. Sorry about that. So we're in the last minute of whatever response you can share in the chat window. Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, everybody. I would love if we could have a couple people say a little more. So I'll tell you who I would like to call on, and then I just want to say the norm usually for this is if you want to pass. If I'm cold calling you, you can just say, no, I want to pass, but I'll give you a moment to think about that. So I would love to ask if Sandra would be willing to share a little bit more about the trend you're seeing with your students. I would love to know if whoever was saying that your kids are in this yellow zone overall, sorry, I scrolled past it, Jamie. So Sandra, Jamie, and Nikita, like if the three of you would be willing to unmute and share a little bit about about the connection you made or the relationship you made to this graph.
Okay, this is Sandra,
Okay.
and I think that it just by the quality of work and the lack of work actually from even higher performing students, I'm getting really nothing compared to what we were doing in the classroom. So they're sending me messages like, there's too much work. I don't know how to manage my time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, I'm sacrificing your class for my other teachers because they're also very demanding in their work. So I feel for the students. I feel that they have been kind of thrown into a college level sort of manage your time mode as ninth graders and 10th graders, and it's just super overwhelming. And being remote, I don't even know where to begin to like help them figure it out.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I'm not going to try to comment on the spot, but thank you. I think that reflects a lot of what we've heard people saying. Who
I
was the
was
next
saying
person, Nikita?
that,
Yeah, or Jamie? Yes, thank you.
sorry, I know
You're good.
we keep stumbling over each other. I'm sorry. So I was saying that I teach special ed living environment in an ICT setting, and on a normal day of in-school teaching, a lot of my kids don't understand the directions when I verbally explain it to them. And now it's just in words, and they're trying to transition to basically, understand this stuff on their own. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, so a lot of what school is for giving moments for people to come back and understand what they're supposed to be doing and clarify what their work is. And a lot of students are still very dependent on teachers to help them with that. Nikita.
Yeah, so I think my comment is a little off kilter, meaning most of my students are in the struggling to adjust or poor area, but I have one student that is just excelling, and he was the one student that came up in mind, and he's doing very good, simply moving his grade from low 80s to mid 90s at this current moment, simply because he has a sister who gets homeschooling. And I guess the transition to then learning at home, the structure was already there. So he just needed to fall into place with the structure that his sister had. And it's working for him. And I've noticed too across the board that our students are not self-advocating. They're not asking for help when they need it. They're not managing time effectively. Their circadian rhythms are all off. They're getting up in the middle of the night, trying to get work done and asking questions while we're sleeping. So there's a lot of off kilter when it comes to scheduling.
Yeah, it's real. That struggling to adjust is really complicated. And you're right, it does leave out those funky outliers who, like, for some reason whether it's that there's a home situation that actually helps them, or there's some social situation they're now escaping from, that this just like is great for them. And we've heard a couple of those kind of stories too, which are fascinating. So I'm sharing all of this as a way into thinking about peer-to-peer discussion in science. So thinking about discussion in science sometimes is really about these very content-specific things. We care about students making sense of phenomena. We care about them providing feedback, discussing texts, asking clarifying questions to the teacher, getting to understand what it is they're supposed to be doing. Maybe they're in groups figuring out how to navigate a hands-on investigation or look at some data. But we also know that humans are social and we like to be around one another. And some of what's great in science is connecting with your peers, providing a social context for science learning, and more kinds of things that maybe we don't even notice until they're gone. So the problem we really are trying to look at today is, if we're in an asynchronous classroom setting, what do we prioritize about those things? Like, what are the things from synchronous in-person science instruction that we need to preserve as we move to remote teaching and learning? So we're going to share some things that maybe as you see them today, you'll say, oh, this would be helpful for preserving something that I value about how my students connect with one another. But there isn't a set list. And there's not like a set list of things that if you do these 10, then you're doing a better job connecting peers with one another. We're all kind of learning this together right now. All right, so I'm going to go into a flyover view of the resource that we're going to be using to do peer-to-peer discussions today. This is not meant to be a comprehensive resource. In fact, the reason we're going to fly over at 50,000 feet is so that you have just enough information to engage with the activities we're about to do, but you're going to need to dig into it on your own and ask us questions and do whatever you need to do, whatever your own process is, if you want to make further sense of this resource I'm going to show. So I think Susan is going to chat the link in the chat window for people who don't know where to find it, but I will also show you how to find this on our site. So the resource I'm about to show can be found on the New Visions site, which is remote.newvisions.org. If you go to remote.newvisions.org, I'm going to demonstrate how to navigate. In a moment, hold on one second. This I'm not super fluid with. Here we go. I hope everybody can see this. So if you go to remote.newvisions.org to curriculum resources and then to science, you can find this resource, which is Mystery Pathogen. Now, as you look, you can see there's a whole bunch of other stuff here. The purple ones are resources that are explicitly tied to COVID-19. So they're really about data that's from this exact situation that we're all facing right now. The gray ones are chemistry, the green ones are living environment, the blue ones are earth science. And as we add more resources, this sorting feature will be more useful. Right now, it's not really necessary because there's not tons of stuff. So this Mystery Pathogen resource is the one that we're going to be looking at today. So if you want to open it up and follow along, you can do that, but I'm going to go back to presenting my slides so that I can fly back out to the 50,000-foot view that I am guiding you through. So in this resource, there's a couple things just at a high level that we're trying to do with this resource. We know that there aren't Regents exams. We know that people are struggling, especially students, with many of the things that you guys just raised in the chat and in the conversation. So we know it's really important to give students time and space to make sense of things that matter in their communities and their lives. More than ever, having some relevance to the content we're studying is important. We know students need to have opportunities to show evidence of mastery of the content area, whatever incremental kind of mastery that's going to be, because showing that they did the course is more important than how they do on a Regents exam this year. And we know that we need to provide space for asynchronous and synchronous instruction. So like Nikita was saying, some kids' circadian clocks are so crazy right now. They're waking up at 4 in the afternoon and going to sleep at 5 in the morning. And they need some opportunities to get instruction outside of what would have been the normal work day. And so we try to provide resources that support that. And by that, I mean synchronous work being online in real time, like log onto a class like we're doing right now at 4 p.m. We're going to do something together, versus things they can do on their own in their own place. So we're going to do one of each of these for peer-to-peer discussion. And we think that some mix of this is important, but how that actually looks in your own setting is going to vary. So this Mystery Pathogen plan starts with a launch, followed by some work time, check-in, and wrap up. That's how all of our materials are structured at this point for science, so that it's fairly straightforward and hopefully pretty easy for kids to navigate and for teachers too. So it starts with a launch where students look at this graph about different diseases, and then they get a mystery illness patient profile. They're going to have to figure out what pathogen this mystery illness is being caused by. That's the launch. Hopefully this gets students interested and wanting to complete this slightly mysterious challenge. During the work time, they have two main tasks. One is sequencing the steps in non-specific immune response. That's the sequence chart up here on the left. And then they have a couple of readings to pull facts and evidence from to figure out what the pathogen is that this mystery illness is being caused by. Then there's some check-in time where students might talk with one another and check their answers against one another's, or check with their teacher and see if they're on the right track with their work. And then finally, there's a wrap-up where they develop a final answer. This is a more open-ended task. It might culminate with some kind of a discussion where you make connections to COVID-19, or it might not. It might just end with students figuring out what that mystery pathogen is. That's the high-level view. So having seen that high-level view, I'm going to just pause. And what comes up for you in what I just shared, and if you've done this resource already, that's great too, about any opportunities for peer discussion, for discussions among students in the plan that I just walked us through. And I'll just pause and give people a chance to think about that. Great, so I see a few comments. Oops, I see a few comments in the chat. So they might clarify science concepts with one another, which is great, especially when they're looking through what the different pathogens are and they're trying to figure out which one it could be. Maybe having a chance to call a friend or text a group of friends and figure out what they're all thinking. That's a great informal peer check-in. It doesn't have to happen at a specific class time. They might get some clarity during the launch from their friends, during check-in time, and as they're developing a final answer. Maybe share their responses with their peers. These are great. Okay, thank you. So we're going to go into actually doing 2 opportunities for peer discussion. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is 3 reads. This is one that I've actually used more in mathematics for looking at substantive math problems and sort of taking them apart and thinking about what they're asking. And we're going to use it for the task in this module. We're going to do a 3 reads of what the task is asking for. So this is synchronous. We're doing this all together, all at the same time. We're all in a Zoom together, and I'm going to facilitate this 3 reads as a teacher. And it would be great if everybody could participate as learners. And I'm going to explain to you what the process is for this 3 reads. Is everyone ready? Okay, so here's how a 3 reads routine works. And the reason we're going to do this is that sometimes people read a question or a task in science and also in other courses probably, and you just read it quickly and you guess the first thing that comes to your mind and you use that as your answer. And a 3 think about a problem from a couple different perspectives before you jump to an answer. So we're going to do this together to kind of strengthen our muscles around careful reading and close reading. So the first read is going to be, what is this problem about? And you're just going to listen and then write in the chat your response to what the problem is about. The second read is going to be, what is the question? In other words, what is the problem asking for? And you're going to respond in a breakout room. You're just going to have 2 minutes in a breakout room. It's going to be very quick. Just check with your partner and be like, do you understand what it's asking? Okay, great. And come back together. 2 minutes. And then the third read is going to be what information is important. And I'm going to ask everybody to pull out one important piece of information. So this is going to go really quick because it's not a very long task and we're going to read it pretty quickly. So we're going to get into it now. Let me open up the thing that I'm going to read out loud to you guys because I almost forgot that I have to have that here off to the side. Just 1 second. Okay, so we're going to go into the first read. All right. So the first read, you're just going to listen and figure out what the problem is about. 1 second. Okay. All right, I'm going to read this out loud and you're just listening for the first round. Mystery illness patient profile. Background. A patient has been admitted into the hospital with several serious symptoms. Doctors need to figure out what is causing the symptoms so they can provide the correct treatment. The doctors have identified that the patient has been infected by a pathogen, but they're not sure which type of pathogen it is. You have to read the fact sheets and collect evidence, identify the type of pathogen, and suggest the best course of treatment based on the pathogen type. Okay, I'm done reading. So I want everybody in the chat to write in your own words, in a couple words, not a paragraph, what is this problem about? Okay, so we got to locate the mystery pathogen. We got to figure out what the patient is sick with. We're going to identify and treat a pathogen. What pathogen is making the patient ill? Identify the pathogen, identify the treatment. You guys nailed it. That's what this problem is about. Okay, we're going to go to the second of the 3 reads. Second read, what is the question? Okay, some of you already kind of went into that with your first read, but that's great. You'll be ahead of the curve. This time you get to read along with me on the screen, and then you're going to go into a breakout room right after I read it, and you're going to talk with a partner about what is the question. Okay. Background. A patient has been admitted into the hospital with several serious symptoms. Doctors need to figure out what is causing the symptoms so they can provide the correct treatment. The doctors have identified that the patient has been infected by a pathogen, but they are not sure which type of pathogen it is. Directions. Read the fact sheets and collect evidence. 2, identify the type of pathogen. And 3, suggest the best course of treatment based on the pathogen type. All right, you should get a pop-up now that says to go to a breakout room. And when you get there, you have 2 minutes to talk with a partner about what is the question. And then we're going to call you back. Are you having trouble? Is that face that are you having trouble with the breakout, Romero? Oh, she's gone. Okay, never mind. Susan, can you just send this, broadcast to the room that, like, remember what you're supposed to figure out is what is the question?
Okay.
I can't broadcast, I can't do anything with the breakouts. That's why I'm like, could you please? This is working great though.
Yeah, and I'll also broadcast the 1-minute warning.
Perfect.
Well, more like a 30-second warning.
My video controls are in like a very weird place and I'm trying to, oh, there we go. Okay. Something I did to set up this screen did not quite set it up the way it was last time. And so. Hey, Sandra.
Hi.
Is your question how to get back to your breakout room, or is your question how to set it up for your own kids?
How to set one up.
We can do that.
Cool.
We'll do that at the end. You're still allowed to use Zoom at your school, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Should I bring everyone back now?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah, we didn't know if we were supposed to bring ourselves back or if you were going to, so we just did.
Very responsible. Thank you.
No, it was Jamie.
We just discussed like in 30 seconds and then that was it. We were like, okay, this is done.
Yeah, it's quick.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. I think other people will be back in about 30 seconds. So until they're back, you should feel
we
free.
use Google Classroom. How do I do this breakout room with Google Classroom?
So if you're using Google Classroom and you have the Google Meets add-on or integration, there is a way to do breakout rooms. It's just not as click of a button as it is for here. I read a tutorial on it, so I will look that up. I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but I can send it to everybody after this session.
Okay then, all right, thank you.
It's not as easy as it is in Zoom, but you're allowed to do it, which you're not allowed, you know, if your school is not using Zoom, then it's the only option you have.
Okay, all right, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, sure, of course. Are people coming back now? I can't tell who's back. Oh, we're all back.
We're all back. Yeah, we're all
Okay.
back. It's 22 now.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. All right, that was your breakout rooms. Now we're going to do the third read. So hopefully now you're clear on what the question is. You've read the problem once. We're going to read it a third time, but we're going to read the table that's below the prompt we were looking at before. So I'm going to read through this table. This is the third and final read. And I'm going to ask, once I've finished reading, for everybody to write one detail from the task that's important and why. So based on everything we've done in the first two reads. All right, so we know that the age of the patient is 68. We know their occupation is a healthcare worker. They recently traveled to Southeast Asia. They have a body temperature of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. They have symptoms that are 4 things: bad cough, pain in the chest, weakness and fatigue, chills and night sweats. And then there's something called a micrograph of the pathogen, which is this picture, and it's 4 pathogens, and each cell is 2 to 4 microns in length. So for the final read, the third read, think what information is important and write in the chat one detail from the task that's important and why. Great, so a bunch of people are saying the symptoms, micrographs. Okay. Very good. All right, so thanks for all this. We're still not solving the problem. We've just done 3 reads to make sense of the problem. You still have to figure out this problem. That's what the rest of this module is about. Let's move on. All right, so we're gonna just pause here for a minute. Everybody engaged in the 3 reads. That was like a 10-minute activity. How did the 3 reads support peer-to-peer discussion? So instead of putting your answer in the chat, I'm gonna ask that you either raise your hand if you know how to do that, or do a thumbs up or a clapping, or just do something to indicate that you would like to speak. Yes, Krishna.
Let me see. How did these 3 reads support peer-to-peer discussion? It gave us sufficient information to figure out what the problem might be, what the question was. So we were all well prepared with having read the problem beforehand to be able to actually discuss what the question was, the problem was. And I think that the 4 of us figured it out immediately.
That's good. So you felt like you had multiple opportunities to kind of engage with it and figure out what was going on.
Reading allowed us to do that, definitely. And I think that's a significant part about peer discussion. I think we need to be sufficiently well prepared before we engage in at least a halfway educated discussion, you know?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You're
Does
welcome.
anybody else have an answer or a thought on how did 3 reads support peer-to-peer discussion? Yes, Elizabeth.
So I like that it gave not just one way for students to share their thoughts. I know there are a lot of students that don't like speaking through Zoom. So I like that they were able to chat it and then they're able to feed off of other students' ideas. Usually it takes like the one or second person to say something to get other students to type. And then it gave them multiple opportunities to just reinforce what they thought was correct. I know a lot of them don't like to say anything because they're afraid their answer is going to sound stupid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would just like to add that it provides the necessary scaffold. You know, you don't read the whole thing and say what's the solution. So you go from what's the problem, what's important, you know, what's the best information there, and then it's kind of it provides a scaffold.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we know that strong readers do that automatically. So
Yes.
probably most of you, if you read this problem without even knowing it, in the back of your head, you're saying, huh, what's this about? Where have I seen this before? Which information is important? And you can literally do that while you're reading. You can multitask like that. But students who are still learning the content and maybe aren't strong readers need 3 discrete rounds to say, okay, this is the round where I'm going to figure out what this is about. This is the round where I'm going to figure out the important information, and for them to know that that's part of what it is to take apart a text. Okay, we're going to keep moving. We're going to do one more now, peer discussion thing. We're going to try Flipgrid, which is an app that we think can be helpful for peer-to-peer discussion. So you can access this as an app on your phone, but if you don't happen to have that, it is fine. You can open it up in a window on your, or in a tab on your computer. So we're going to first try this. I'm just going to give everybody a second. This literally takes under a minute to say hello to the group in Flipgrid. So I'm going to make sure you're all muted, because otherwise we're going to all hear you saying hello, and then we're going to hear it again when we watch the recording. So take a moment to say hello to the group in Flipgrid. You have 2 ways to do this. You can type in that link. Oh, you have 3 ways. You can type in that link. You can take a picture of that QR code, or you can go to the link that's in your participant agenda. So one of those 3 things, and it's going to ask you for a password, and you should type in May 6, 2020. We're going to stay in the room together to do this right now. So if you have any trouble, oh, and the 4th way, it's in the chat. Thank you, Susan. So if you have any trouble accessing it, just put up your hand or unmute yourself. Oh, don't unmute yourself. Put up your hand and let us know. Okay, so we'll give everybody a minute to try to do this.
What's the password again?
May 6, 2020.
Okay. So after saying hello, what do I do next?
We'll just give it like 30 more seconds, because I think some people are still trying to record theirs, and then we'll come back together. Thank you. All right. So we're going to come back together. It's taking a moment to update, so I don't know just from looking at the admin panel if everybody had a chance to do it. So does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question because they got stuck for some reason? Okay, Sandra, you were having trouble. You did it, but you didn't see your video.
Yeah, that's right. I was just wondering if you can edit, because I didn't say a fun fact. I just missed that part. I just said hello because I was really nervous, I guess. I don't know. So is it possible to ever go back and edit a Flipgrid video?
I think it's possible to go back because I recorded mine wrong the first time too, and it let me go back and re-record. But the only one that I'm seeing so far is Elizabeth M. Does anybody else want to?
I see Elizabeth C. and John S.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. I think there's a lag on this, so this is good to know that people are still working on. It takes a minute to upgrade it or to update it. Okay. Did anyone else get stuck along the way and they want to ask a question about this before we try this on our own?
Hello, sorry. Hey, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for the record feature. So I'm in the Flipgrid and it says you can record up to 1 minute. Remember that your classmates will be able to see this video. I don't see where to record. I see a play button. I'm trying to see where to record it exactly.
Okay, let me see.
Is there supposed to be a record button also?
My understanding is that you can click the green plus, the green plus.
The green plus. Oh,
I don't know.
There's a green plus in the sidebar. It's not really like on the top in the sidebar. I'm trying to see if it.
Oh yeah, I clicked the green button too. That's what I.
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see this green plus right here?
Yes.
And it says record a response. So if I click that, then, and I log in with my account, which now it's asking me to do again, even though I did it before.
Oh, okay.
Yep, then I can record right here.
Okay, I'll try that again then.
So actually I think everybody now has a sense of what you need to do, and I should have been clearer. You have to click on that green plus, so that's good that we went through that. Now we're gonna do our own. So when you go into your breakout rooms, where this is just gonna be quick, 5 minutes in a breakout room to do this, but this is a little bit of it's a task. It's a little bit of an independent task, and we're gonna try out kind of what this feels like being alone working on this. And so it's a little bit of a weird thing because we're going to come back here and we're still in a Zoom, but we're going to be alone for 5 minutes. So you either need to go to this Flipgrid from this link, from this QR code, or from the participant agenda, or Susan will chat you the link once you're in a breakout room. So you have 4 ways to get the link. And remember, once you get to it, you press that green plus sign, and that'll prompt you to record your quick video. Okay. Susan is going to send you to breakout rooms, and if we are allowed to, we're going to send you to a all by yourself breakout room. You're going to be alone in a room. And if you need help, you just can chat Susan or me, or you can just come back if you get lonely. Everybody left, so I guess they're okay with that.
Yeah, so we are able to do it where it's a solo room.
I'm glad that worked out. Yeah, so I think if we can give people like 4 minutes right now.
Sure, I'll set the timer.
Yeah. And then call people back.
Sure.
Maybe 3.5 or so, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. That worked okay. Roop and Lisa, did you get a notification about a breakout room, or are you just, are you trying to figure it out still?
Oh, you know what? Roop looks like he's not assigned to a room. Shoot. Huh. Oh, you know why? Because I had this preset at 21, and I think someone else joined, so it just made the number. It threw off my numbers.
I got it. I clicked it. And I was the only one, so it went back. But now I can't go back into it. I was only 6, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. These are individual breakout rooms. This is actually like work on your own and sort of like pretend like you're doing this on your own. That's kind of
okay. That's fine. Okay, I'll do that.
It's a little bit of a pretend thing.
I also could assign. Well, it looks like you're supposed to be in room 4. I just reassigned you back into room 4. Roop. There we go.
to see whether people are doing it.
Okay, so I'm back. So you just have to record yourself over there, right?
Yes.
Okay, I did it.
Did you manage to do it? Awesome.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I did. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm seeing how many responses I have. Was that Nabila saying you've recorded yours?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to, you can go back in and respond to somebody else, since we have another minute or two here.
But I was alone in that room. Who should I respond to?
Well, that's what we're trying out. We're trying actually using the platform for having discussion. So even if you can respond in the Flipgrid to somebody else if you want to.
Okay, I don't know how to go back.
That's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it for right now then. Yeah, it's a lot of navigating.
Okay, thank you so much.
I noticed, Kieran, there's 2 topics. That's what happened. I recorded, there's like 2 topics in that Flipgrid. And John and I answered in one topic. And then there's another topic that has a bunch of other people in it.
Got it. Well, it's all good because now people are answering in that topic. So it's going to be okay.
Yeah, one of them is like Mystery Pathogen, and one of them is hi.
Say hello.
Say hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
I just said hello too. I didn't do the assignment.
You know what? It's all good because this is exactly the stuff that happens with students the first time they try it. We're going to talk about all that stuff. What are you doing here, Raymond Christopher?
Oh.
That's so cute.
All right, I'm gonna let folks back in.
Yes, please.
Chimes.
I need a quick bathroom break, okay?
Please. Take your time. Okay. Is everyone back now? Not quite. People are coming back. I got it.
Yeah, it'll kick them out in like 20 seconds.
Okay. Looks like we're back, right? All right, welcome back from the breakout room, everyone. I thought I would show you what this looks like from the teacher perspective. So this is what I have. Oh, I should refresh this. So I got a bunch of responses that different students posted, and I can go in and view those, or I can go in and do different things with those. Both on this topic and on the say hello. Some people posted their say hellos. One thing that I learned from this is that having more than one topic active at a given time is a little confusing, because if people are not sure what they're supposed to post, they might go into the wrong topic. So that's a good learning for me. I'm curious now with the group though, going back to our original conversation, which is, our original topic was peer-to-peer discussion. In the last minute we have here, does anybody have thoughts about how Flipgrid, even if you just barely dip your toes into it, how it supports peer-to-peer discussion? Does anybody want to raise their hand or do a reaction and tell us what you're thinking about peer-to-peer discussion with this tool? Yeah, Joseph?
Yes. I would just say that Flipgrid can help clarify the thoughts that students have on a concept. Like when other students have finished making their videos and posted it, they can listen to it and kind of say, oh, I thought this was like this before, but having heard from at least 2, 3, 4 other people, and now I have a clearer thought what this concept is about.
Yeah, and you can try this after this session. You can go back in and you can look at other people's videos, and you might find out that somebody has had an idea that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Now I would change my answer on this project. And it's very low stakes. And also there's all those emojis and things you can put. You can cover up your face, you can change your background, so you can make a video without having to make a video.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I think we have time for like one more thought about how does Flipgrid support peer-to-peer discussion? Okay. The one other thing that I will say, having talked with some teachers who have sort of jumped into using this, out of all the things that you can potentially be using in this remote learning context, is that it's very friendly on the screen. Even though it is secure for students, it is really easy to get into it. There's not like 100 steps to figure out what you're supposed to do. It kind of holds your hand and guides you through. And both the iPhone app and the laptop version of it, like the browser version, both work really well and intuitively for learners. So there's not like a steep learning curve. So if you're trying to use it asynchronously, it actually works really well for check-ins and for things where you just want to hear kids' voices. Okay, great. So we're going to move into wrapping this up. In terms of science support, we have one more webinar in this series. We also have webinars around earth science, living environment, COVID-19 resources, chemistry resources. So if you don't know about that whole calendar, I will put that in an email after this session so you can know where to look to see how to register for other sessions you might be interested in. And we're adding new resources, not every week, but as frequently as we can. But we're really trying to be there to support people. So if you have questions, you want to set up an appointment with me or John or Libby, just let us know and we'd be glad to talk. New Visions is hiring. I was asked to put this slide in here, so here's the slide. It's remarkable, but even in this remote learning time, some schools are hiring for next year. So if you know anybody, I'm not encouraging anybody to leave their schools that they're currently at, but if you know somebody who's looking for a job, please get in touch. And finally, we have a feedback form, and Susan is going to put the link in the chat so that you can fill it out. And we really hope that you will let us know what was helpful, what maybe missed the mark, what you would like more of in the future. And it was really great interacting with everybody. Thanks for trying out these resources, and please let us know what worked, what didn't, what you would like more of, how we can help. Sandra had a question about breakout rooms. So Sandra, if you want to stick around for 2 minutes, I can explain that. And if anybody else has questions, feel free to stick around as well.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Good idea.
If that's all right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for joining.